Have you ever stopped to think that maybe everything you believe yourself to be isn't real? I'm not talking about mystical illusions, but the most subtle and dangerous of them all, the illusion of the self. We spend our lives chasing an identity, a name, a job, an image on social media, as if that could make us someone. But what if it's the opposite? What if the more you try to define yourself, the further you drift from who you truly are? Nietzsche once said that becoming who you are is humanity's greatest challenge. Long before him, Socrates warned, "Know thyself." But what happens when no one truly wants to know themselves anymore? When we confuse consciousness with opinion and self-knowledge with performance? Look around you. Hurry has become a virtue, silence a discomfort, comparison an addiction. We're all looking outward, seeking approval, success, love, but forgetting to look inward. The mind speaks endlessly, and the observer falls asleep. Consciousness is buried beneath notifications. Presence is lost among thoughts. And the result is a fragmented, confused, mechanical existence. But there's something within you that never changes. Something that observes everything, fear, ego, noise, and yet remains untouched. Discovering what that is could be the difference between living on autopilot or awakening once and for all. What you're about to discover may change everything. Imagine the mind as a river, a constant flow of thoughts, emotions, and memories rushing endlessly. Most people believe they are the water, but in truth, we are the riverbed, the silent space that allows everything to flow. The problem is that we confuse ourselves with the movement and forget the stillness. We spend our lives believing that to think is the same as to exist, when in fact thought is only a reflection of consciousness, not its source. We live in an age where the mind never stops. Notifications, conversations, opinions. The digital world has turned thought into constant noise. We are always reacting, rarely observing. The observer, the one who notices what's happening, has fallen asleep. That's why most people live in tension, anxiety, and confusion. The more we identify with mental noise, the more we lose touch with our own essence. Nietzsche said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he become one." The monsters of today have no faces or fangs. They are automatic thoughts, mental habits, and beliefs we repeat without realizing. We are swept away by the river of thought, forgetting that we have the power to step out of the current and simply observe. Socrates, with his irony, would ask, "Do you think, or are you being thought by your thoughts?" That's the fundamental question of self-knowledge. It's not about controlling the mind, but realizing that you are not it. The inner self doesn't need to prove itself, it simply is. Ignorance is born when we confuse what passes with what remains. The consequence is living tired, fragmented, searching for peace in places where only noise exists. The philosophical solution is a return to pure consciousness, the silent space between one thought and another, where serenity and clarity dwell. The mind speaks, consciousness listens, and in that space, awakening begins. And you, have you been listening to your mind or to the silence? Comment below. Plato gave us the allegory of the cave, where men chained to the wall mistake shadows for reality. Today the chains are invisible, and the shadows are called identity. We live imprisoned by the mental image we've created of ourselves. I am this, I am not that. We spend our lives defending a character and forget the actor. This character is born from self-deception. It's molded by social expectations, likes, job titles, and comparisons. Social media is the new platonic cave, shadows projected from lives no one truly lives. And as in the allegory, few have the courage to leave the cave and face the light, their inner truth. The philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you that disturbs you, but your judgment about what happens." When we believe we are the character, we suffer with every criticism, defeat, or rejection. But when we recognize ourselves as consciousness, the space where everything happens, nothing can truly harm us. Reality stays the same. but our perception transforms completely. The illusion of the self is the greatest obstacle to self-knowledge. It makes us confuse the observed with the observer. The solution, Socrates taught, is mutix, the midwifery of the soul, questioning, digging, removing the false until the true is born. To free yourself from the illusion of the self is not to lose yourself, it's to finally find yourself, to understand that you are not the role, you are the stage, not the reflection, but the mirror, not the name, but the presence behind it. And have you realized who's really looking when you look in the mirror? Life is like the sky. Emotions, thoughts, and events are clouds passing by. Some are light, others stormy. But the sky, consciousness, remains untouched. The problem is that we identify so deeply with the clouds that we forget the sky. We live oscillating with every change, unaware that there is something within us that never changes. In modern life, we often mistake movement for evolution. We rush from meeting to meeting, from goal to goal, believing that life only happens in action. But real life also unfolds in the pauses, in the space between sound and silence, between doing and being. That pause is presence, and few ever truly experience it. Seneca once warned, "Man suffers more in imagination than in reality." Suffering is often just a thought repeated, not a fact. When we confuse the contents of consciousness with consciousness itself, we react to clouds as if they were eternal storms. Socrates would say that the wise person is the one who observes without being shaken. That is true freedom, to be the sky, not the cloud. When we realize this, something profound shifts. Serenity is born, perception expands, and the world loses its power to dominate us. Ignorance is believing that pain defines who we are. The consequence is living enslaved by circumstances. The philosophical solution is realizing that consciousness never suffers. It is the mind, identified with thought, that suffers. The sky does not fear the storm because it knows it will pass. And have you been living like the sky or like the clouds? We live in a society obsessed with being someone. From an early age, we are trained to collect titles, followers, achievements, as if the value of being were measured by the sum of our roles. Identity has become a commodity, and ironically, the more we try to be someone, the further we drift from ourselves. If Socrates were alive today, he would look at this spectacle of vanity and say, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But who still has time to examine life? We rush so much to prove that we exist that we forget to actually live. A modern philosopher would say we are trapped in a collective ego. Social media amplifies the craving for validation. I post, therefore I am. The mind seeks applause because it fears silence. But silence is where the true inner self resides, the essence, the still point amid the chaos. What if everything you believe about yourself is just a role? What if every victory is only a disguise? What if the real you is hidden behind all the masks you wear just to survive? It's at that moment that awakening begins, when the mask falls and you realize the actor is not the character. The observer has never been the observed. Being does not depend on appearing. Are you willing to die to the character so you can finally be born into truth? If this reflection resonates with you, like this video and subscribe to continue this philosophical dialogue. Imagine life as an ocean. Each wave is an emotion, a thought, a loss, a desire. Most people try to control the waves, to swim against them, to hold on to what has already passed. But the true sage learns to float. This is the essence of detachment. It's not about rejecting the world, but refusing to drown in it. In everyday life, attachment shows up in the smallest ways. The phone that never leaves your hand, the fear of losing someone, the stubborn grip on an opinion. We live trapped in the need for control. We want everything to unfold according to our expectations. But control is an illusion of the self, and attachment is its golden prison. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Detachment begins when we find that inner why, something deeper than possessions or outcomes. Socrates would call this freeing the soul from the desires that rule it. Freedom isn't about owning less, it's about needing less. Ignorance is believing that happiness lies in accumulation. The consequence is the constant fear of loss. The philosophical solution is realizing that nothing truly belongs to us, not even our thoughts. Everything passes, and precisely because of that, everything is precious. Detachment isn't coldness, it's wisdom. It's walking lightly, living experiences without becoming their prisoner, loving without possessing, serving without depending, acting without losing yourself. And you, what are you still carrying that you should have already let go of? Have you ever looked for your glasses while they were already on your head? That's exactly how we live. We keep searching outside for what has always been inside. We look for meaning, love, peace, but all of these are expressions of the same consciousness we already are. The mind of the seeker is restless. It wants to attain something, to arrive somewhere. But the more it seeks, the more it reinforces the belief that something is missing. It's a vicious circle of dissatisfaction. Socrates would say, "He who seeks outside himself is condemned to never find himself." Nietzsche spoke of eternal recurrence. Man repeats the same mistakes because he doesn't realize that what he seeks is himself. In the modern world, this is plain to see. We chase purpose through careers, recognition through likes, transcendence through courses. And yet the emptiness remains because we forget that the sought and the seeker are one and the same. Ignorance is believing there's something to be achieved. The consequence is living in constant lack. The philosophical solution is self-perception, realizing that consciousness is already complete. There's nothing to reach, only something to recognize. When you stop seeking, you begin to see. And when you see, you understand. The search was always the way back home. Are you still searching, or have you begun to see? Consciousness is like a mirror. Everything that appears, joy, pain, fear, desire, is just a reflection. But the mirror itself never changes. The problem is that we've become fascinated by the images and forgotten the mirror. In the fast rhythm of modern life, we've lost the habit of observing. We live in constant reaction. Technology has expanded our view of the world, but narrowed our view of ourselves. Consciousness is the only constant reality, yet it's the most neglected. It isn't a thought, it isn't an emotion. It's the space in which both arise. Aristotle said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." But to know yourself isn't to collect ideas about who you are. It's to silence the mind so you can perceive what observes the mind. When the mind becomes still, the observer awakens. Ignorance is living identified with the content of the mind. The consequence is getting lost in dramas that exist only in thought. The philosophical solution is a return to presence, the direct experience of the now, where there is no past or future, only being. Recognizing consciousness is like turning on a light in a dark room. Nothing in the room changes, but now everything is seen with clarity. Can you perceive the observer who is reading these words right now? When recognition happens, everything changes, yet nothing changes. The same situations remain, the same people, the same challenges. The difference lies in perception. What once caused despair is now understood. What once caused pain becomes simply an experience. Wisdom is born from the gaze that sees without reacting. Socrates said, "No one does evil voluntarily, only out of ignorance." When consciousness awakens, ignorance dissolves, and with it, fear, envy, and pride disappear. Serenity arises not as passivity, but as lucidity. In modern life, this is a kind of miracle. When the ego dissolves, traffic, the boss, the noise, none of it can steal your peace anymore. The outer world remains chaotic, but the mind finds rest. The inner transformation isn't visible, but it is radical. Ignorance breeds conflict. Recognition generates peace. The philosophical solution is simple yet profound. Live as consciousness, not as the character. You don't become better, only more authentic. You don't gain power, you gain presence. You don't conquer the world, you understand it. And have you ever acted without needing to prove anything? The greatest mistake of humankind is trying to attain what it already is. We seek enlightenment as if it were a prize, but the light has never stopped shining. The issue is that our eyes are closed. Spiritual practices, readings, philosophies, they all have value, but they are maps, and the map is not the territory. Consciousness cannot be achieved. It can only be recognized. Awakening isn't an event. It is a remembering. Nietzsche said that man is something that must be overcome, but this overcoming isn't outward, it's inward. It's the overcoming of self-deception, of the ego that tries to control what has never been controllable. Socrates taught that ignorance is the starting point. All I know is that I know nothing, and it is in that humility that wisdom begins to bloom. Ignorance is the attempt to get there. The consequence is a life of exhaustion, frustration, and the constant sense that something is missing. The philosophical solution is to realize that there is no destination, only presence. You don't need to become anything. You already are the essence. All you need to do is stop pretending you're not. Are you trying to find the light, or do you simply need to open your eyes? Even when forgotten, consciousness remains. Like the sun behind the clouds, it never stops shining. It's only hidden by thoughts. There is no spiritual loss, only distraction. In the rush of modern life, distraction has become a way of being. We're always going somewhere, yet no one ever arrives. We're connected to everything except ourselves. Awakening is the return to presence, being here, now, aware of your own existence. Socrates would say that to live without consciousness is to exist without a soul. Nietzsche would call it a living death. And that's exactly what our world has become, full of movement yet empty of meaning. Present consciousness restores meaning to the simple things: breathing, seeing, being. Ignorance is forgetting yourself. The consequence is existential emptiness. The philosophical solution is to remember that everything you've been seeking is already happening right now. Consciousness is home. It always has been. It always will be. You just have to return. And are you still searching for the sun, or have you realized that it never went out? We've reached the end, but the end is only the beginning. What you've discovered here isn't a new belief, nor a philosophy to memorize. It's a mirror. And what it reflects isn't an idea, it's you. Everything you seek, peace, love, freedom, purpose, isn't out there. It's within the silent consciousness that observes everything without being touched. It's within the observer you've always been, even when you forgot to look within. Socrates said that knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And now, perhaps, you understand that self-knowledge isn't a path of learning, but of remembering. Remembering that you are not the character, you are the presence. Not the thought, but the space between them. Not what changes, but what remains. Nietzsche spoke of the eternal return. To live in such a way that if you had to repeat your life infinitely, you would do so without regret. And that is only possible when one lives awake, conscious, in full harmony with the now. Consciousness doesn't need to be attained. It's the foundation of everything. Awakening isn't in the future. It's the moment you truly see. To see is to be free. To be free is to live. And to live with presence is, perhaps, the greatest act of practical philosophy a human being can perform. So, close your eyes for a moment. Feel the silence behind your thoughts and realize what you've been searching for has been here all along. Comment below, I am consciousness, not thought. I want to know if this journey awakened something in you. If this reflection made sense to you, like this video and subscribe so we can continue this conversation. Because philosophy never ends, it only deepens. It's not the world that needs to change, it's the way you see it. Socrates, reimagined for today. The next step may reveal something even deeper. Perhaps the real question isn't, who are you, but what within you has never stopped being?